Hi guys, it's France Papillon and this is a special edition journal on Monday for PaperArtsy. I'm starting today's spread with some fresco paint and this is the inky pool color. I'm simply applying it using a card, not being very careful about it, and as my book is getting quite wonky, I have to work it to get it almost everywhere. This dries pretty quickly, so I can go in with a second layer, which will be a layer of crackle glaze. I will be applying this one on top of this harlequin stencil, again using a card. Now this won't give me a very precise effect. My book is wonky, I'm working with a card on top of a stencil, so I'm not looking for a perfect harlequin look. Helping it to dry it a bit faster and then leaving it aside so that it can dry completely. This is just some packaging plastic that I'm using to protect this cutting mat because I want to apply a layer of grunge paste that I want to use as an embellishment, so I want to be able to pick it up from my cutting mat. I'm mixing it up again with the same inky pool fresco paint, and now I can spread it on top of this butterfly stencil, and once this will be dry I will be able to lift the grunge paste. And as I have enough paste, I'm making a second butterfly that I will be using for another project. It's okay if the butterfly is not really perfect, as you will be able to cut away any excess paste. Third layer, this is again a fresco paint that I'm applying using a makeup sponge, and this is the guacamole one. Now when you applying fresco paint on top of crackle glaze, you have to work in one movement and not go back and be tempted to put more paint where you've already put some. Otherwise the crackle won't work its magic. And you can already see the reaction between the fresco paint and the crackle glaze underneath it. It's really fun to look at when you're working with it. And now using a sanding grip, I'm going to accentuate the distressed look of the crackles. To accentuate it even more, I'm going back in with Adirondack ink. Then using a baby wipe and some kitchen towel, I'm taking the ink partly away again. So this has been drying all night, and now I can simply lift the grunge paste from the packaging plastic and use it as an embellishment. You can even choose which side you want to use. If you use the side that was in contact with the plastic, it will be shiny and very smooth, while the other side is a bit more texturized. Adding a bit of vintage photo distress ink over the edges, and now I'm also going to add some accents on my wings. Just finger painting some more fresco paint, always the same color, it's still the Inky Pool one. And to add even more depth, I'm doing the same with the snowflake one. You have to be quite careful with the grunge paste in this way, because it could tear up quite easily. These are two PaperArtsy stamps that I stamped on smoothie paper using black archival ink. And as I don't know which image I want to use, I'm working with both at this point. Adding some water on top of the vintage photo distress ink, and this will really make the archival ink pop on top of the paper. And then distressing the edges some more. I had some Tim Holtz flowers on my table, which I thought would fit perfectly as the body for the butterfly. I'm stamping another PaperArtsy stamp using the same Adirondack ink, which is the Stream, I think, on the top edges of my pages, and this is a text from background 2 that I'm stamping with archival ink. Heat setting everything before I go on with the next step. These are vintage dictionary pages that I use to protect the other pages from my book when I'm spraying ink or something. And as you can see, they're quite fun to use as background papers. So this one will be used as background for this image. Trimming it down. Et voila! As it has quite some layers of ink and paint and gesso, it's a bit sturdier than when it comes straight out of the dictionary. I sewed a piece of black scrap paper on the back of it so that I could have a pouch for my spread. And closing it up with double-sided tape. I'm cutting down a tag because I want to have the sturdiness of a manila tag to go in my pouch, but my tag is too big, so I'm cutting it down so that it will fit inside, but I still want to have the shape of the tag. Going back to my 2012 agenda that I didn't use and making this little piece of paper look old, just using some vintage photo distress ink and water. Even when stamping, I'm stamping with the same vintage photo distress ink, but I'm also adding a little bit of water so that my stamping isn't neat. And then I'm gluing everything together using some decoupage glue. I'm tearing off the excess, but I'm being quite careful because my paper is a bit fragile. But I don't want to cut it using scissors, as I don't want it to be too neat. Making sure everything will stick together even when I'm taking it out of the pouch or sticking it back inside of it. And then making the hole again at the top of the tag. Adding some more vintage photo distress ink and a little reinforcement ring. This is a Tim Holtz one. Et voila! And so I'll have some room for journaling, even if I don't want everybody to see what I will be writing. Adding a little piece of lace, and as it's looking too white to the rest of the page, I'm going to colorize it, again using vintage photo. Adding some water and also some water on the lace, so that the color can spread out easily. So you can buy very cheap, brand new lace and make it look vintage. I'm adding quite some glue on the back of my pouch to make sure everything will stay together in my journal, because it is quite dimensional in the end. Then using some snowflake fresco again, to which I'm adding some water, I'm adding a bit of texture to the wings of the dragonflies I've been stamping earlier with the Adirondack ink. And as the Adirondack ink is a water-soluble ink, the white and the blue will mix up just a tiny bit. As I do like the look of the dragonflies at the top of my page, I want to do the same at the bottom. So going back in with the stamp, the same Adirondack ink, and then the same fresco paint. But I have to wait for the Adirondack ink to dry a bit. I'm adding a bit of a brown edge using, I think it's the archival coffee. Yes, it's the archival coffee. On the edges of the butterfly wings, and now I can stick them down. And as I didn't place my grunge paste directly on the pages, I can even have it stick it out of the page a bit. To glue down the flowers, I'm using glue dots. And now that my dragonflies are dry, I can go back in with the snowflake fresco and the water. With the charcoal pencil, I'm adding some depth to the wings. I first go around the wings very, very lightly with my pencil, then using blending stump, I'm blending it. Again, you have to be careful not to damage the crunch paste when doing this. And then I'm doing the same with a white charcoal pencil, just to make it work with the rest of the page. The flowers are looking too neat, so I'm adding just a tiny bit of snowflake fresco paint to them. And then some inky pool fresco paint to the tag, also to make it work with the rest of the page. And a tiny bit of white too. This is a 7 Gypsies rub-on, and I will be using this one to add a bit of design to the wings of the butterfly. I deconstruct the drawing of the rub-on so that it fits my need and so that it works with my butterfly. Adding a bit more at the top of the wings too, so that they don't just look too plain. These are 2 strips of smoothie paper that I'm colorizing using Vintage Photo Distress ink again. And to me, it's always the same steps: adding water, drying it, adding even more distress ink, and then stamping. But again, just like I did with my agenda page, I'm stamping using Vintage Photo and water so that it bleeds just a little bit. And now, using an authentic alphabet, I can make my wording. This one says, I want to wake up and fly away. Not that I want to run away, but I thought it might be so much fun to get out of bed in the morning and be able to fly immediately into action for your day. And now I can glue these down in place. I'm adding a tiny bit of black soot distress ink, because I do have some black on the rest of my page. And as my book is quite wonky, again, I'm gluing this down using double-sided tape, so I don't have to hold it down for 10 minutes before the glue gets set. I'm adding a bit of doodling all around the edges using a Uniball Vision pen. And now I can use the same pen to add some journaling on my little tag. Last thing to do for this spread is to add a date stamp. I hope you liked today's page. You'll find all the product information on the PaperArtsy blog, and you'll find the next journal on Monday on my blog. Have a happy week, everyone. Ta-da!